Waititi, a filmmaker who grew up on the islands of New Zealand, has come to be one of New Zealand's most loved storytellers, even being hailed as New Zealander of the Year in 2017. Taika was raised to parents who weren't into the corporate world. His mom is a teacher and his dad is a painter, who he may have inherited his artistic genes from, as Taika is inclined towards the arts as a visual artist, writer, director, and an actor. In 2003, he made a film called Two Cars, One Night, which started his award-winning streak as a filmmaker and even got him nominated for an Oscar in 2005. He continued to create more and more films, exhibiting the unique culture and humor of the land where he grew up. Through films such as Boy in 2010, adding a little bit of quirkiness through What We Do in the Shadows in 2014, and injecting some fantasy and sci-fi through Thor Ragnarok in 2017. It's with this creative flair and distinctive storytelling of his that has shown New Zealand's unique cultural traits to millions of people. Boy is Waititi's first film, which follows a Michael Jackson-loving 11-year-old named Boy in a small rural town in New Zealand, telling the story of a child with an absentee father and a mother who has passed away. Boy has imagined several heroic fantasies about his father, and when his father finally visits Boy to spend time with him and his brother Rocky, we see if he lives up to Boy's image of him. To Waititi, Boy is a human story where we see how children cope with these situations and how they make life more bearable. Originally a low-budget short film, What We Do in the Shadows is Waititi's second feature film after Boy. What We Do in the Shadows is a mockumentary film which follows the story of a group of misfit New Zealand vampires, Vladislav, Deacon, Peter, Nick, and Viago, trying to live their daily lives as well as trying to adapt to the changing society. In 2017, Taika Waititi directed his first major Hollywood film, Thor Ragnarok. It follows the god Thor as he attempts to escape the planet Sakaar in order to return to his home planet of Asgard and defend it from his sister Hela, who seeks vengeance. However, he struggles to escape as he is taken in as a gladiator by the planet's ruler, the Grand Master. It is on this planet where he reunites with the Hulk and tries to find a way to return and save his home planet Asgard. With all that said, Taika Waititi is able to merge different genres of film with comedy. For instance, Boy is a comedy drama, What We Do in the Shadows is a horror comedy, and Thor Ragnarok is a sci-fi fantasy comedy. Waititi also reinforces the idea of finding comedy in tragedy in his films. Taika Waititi once stated that he would want to explore the painful comedy of growing up and interpreting the world. I believe that despite our faults and inadequacies, through all the pain and heartache, there is still room to laugh. Waititi exudes this belief through his films, by the use of comedy and following the coming-of-age theme in his films. Now that we know his films, what is it exactly that makes Taika Waititi an auteur? According to Andrew Saris, there are three premises of the auteur theory, things that make a filmmaker an auteur. The first is technical competence, which means that one is able to organize a film with some degree of clarity and coherence. Taika is technically competent, considering the fact that he studied film at Victoria University of Wellington and understands its technical aspects well. The second is distinguishing personality. His personality is seen in each of these films. In Boy, this is seen in two ways. 1. Waititi always stars in his own films, as he plays Boy's father, Alamein. 2. Maori culture is evident in the film. We see this as Boy's grandmother leaves for a tangi, a traditional Maori funeral rite. In the horror comedy What We Do in the Shadows, the non-human creatures exhibit very human experiences such as heartbreak, rejection, insecurity, and even mundane things, like living with unruly roommates who don't wash the dishes. These scenes show Waititi's ability to make even the strangest creatures relatable. In Thor Ragnarok, despite it being a blockbuster film, Taika Waititi was still able to incorporate his signature brand of deadpan and quirky comedy. With this, many credit Waititi with reinventing and breathing new life into the otherwise dark and brooding nature of previous Thor movies. Waititi starred in the film himself as the voice of the character Korg. Throughout the film, there are comedic references made, yet it was still very clearly an action movie. For the most part, the film is able to show Thor as an outsider, especially when he is on the planet Sakaar. Usually, people would be in awe of the god of thunder, but on Sakaar, he's just another one of the Grandmaster's gladiators. Aside from this, Waititi was also able to impart his own sense of humor to the sarcastic and quippy humor of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Lastly, the third is interior meaning. Here, we see a deeper meaning behind the signature style in the film. Auteurism sensitized viewers to narrative experiments that expressed a director's vision of life. And that vision of life is what we can see in these films. Taika is known for his recurring theme of happy, sad cinema, and Boy is a prime example of that. With Boy's heroic fantasies about his father, expectations are built as to how his father is. When Boy's father visits them, we then see the antithesis of Boy's heroic fantasies about his father. The film starts off comedic, laughing here and there, and ends with the revelation of tear-jerking situations. Throughout What We Do in the Shadows, the character experiencing othering by other vampires, the werewolves, and society in general. This plays into Taika Waititi's interest in the outsider, and the vampires in the film exemplify the makeshift family that Waititi often features in his films. Even in telling the story of heroes and gods, Taika is able to insert his own style into the story. In Thor Ragnarok, his usual theme of a makeshift family is seen. While Thor is a god, his family still remains to be imperfect and dysfunctional. In all of his films, Taika is able to inject his signature style, as seen through the 3 films discussed and in many more. Whether it would be the quirky outsider, the deadpan comedy, or happy sad cinema, or even a cameo by the filmmaker himself, one can always look forward to an entertaining and witty film that is distinctly a Taika Waititi film, and that is what makes him an auteur.